Today, we're going to be talking the number one thing your real estate agent should do before you write an offer. Now, we're going to say it together. If you're new to the channel, I'm licensed in 48 states as a mortgage lender. My team's one of the top purchase teams in the country. We're happy to help you, but the reason I tell you this is because that way you know, like, I see some stuff. I see a lot of amazing, great things, people getting into houses, accomplishing goals and dreams. I also see some really bad stuff. So this video is in reaction to a reoccurring theme that I see that just boggles my mind, Okay, so look, we all know this. You should always get a fully underwritten pre-approval before you go shopping. Yeah, we know that. You're gonna pick out a real estate agent that you like. You're gonna look at reviews, experience. You're gonna do all that. Maybe you watched my video on the X Factor. Great. Here's something that I see that just makes me want to scream as a lender. And I'm gonna tell you why. So when you're looking at buying a house, one of the costs is the cost of an appraisal. And depending on where you are in the country, it can be as cheap as $450, as much as $1,200. No joke, like there's some variances. And the bottom line is, no matter if it's $450 or $12, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And sometimes what I'll see people get in contract and there was zero chance the house was ever going to appraise. So let's talk about what an appraisal is, why you care as a buyer, and why you want to make sure your agent is doing this one thing. An appraisal is a measure of value, okay? So 99% of the loans, you're gonna need an appraisal. Like VA, you're gonna need an appraisal. Conventional, sometimes you'll get an appraisal waiver, but most of the time you need an appraisal, especially if you're doing 3, 5, 10% down. FHA, you need an appraisal. Great. The appraiser's job is to make sure that what you're paying for the house makes sense. So if you're buying a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for $250,000, they're gonna look around the neighborhood, usually within a mile, to see if that's the right price for the house, meaning that it's gonna be, that's what they're selling for. So they look for comparable sales, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 250, similar condition. If there's not stuff of similar condition, if you're like, but mine's so much more beautiful, they make adjustments, okay? And a real estate agent can pretty easily pull up comparable sales, okay? Does this make them an appraiser? No. Are they gonna be spot on? No, that is not the expectation of this at all. The expectation is just that you're in the ball game. That's it. I was looking at one this weekend and I don't like the agent. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a super fan. And the reason I wasn't a super fan is because we had qualified the buyer for a certain amount. It was where the buyer was comfortable and they were just pushing. And it was such an aggression of pushing up price that I was like, what's going on here, right? So I look at the house and, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think it was like $245. And the house that's right behind it sold for like $170 5 months ago. And they're similar size, they're similar condition, it's gonna be a comparable sale. That's the thing. If something has sold within 6 months near the property and it's similar size and square footage, it's gonna be a comparable sale, okay? And agents can quickly pull this information. So with a lot of the agents I work with, they just automatically do it. And they do it because they want to make sure that they're writing an offer that makes sense. They don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste the seller's time. They don't want to waste your money. That's the thing. Because if you get in contract on a house, okay? So let's say it's $245 and you get in contract and you're like, this is great. Well, we're going to order the appraisal. You're going to pay the appraisal fee. And guess what? If it comes in at like $200,000, it doesn't mean the seller automatically drops their price. You're gonna have to negotiate. They might drop it, they might not. In this case, the agent had said, well, we'll just negotiate if it comes in low, and the Zestimate says it's worth this. Zestimates can be manipulated. Let's just be real about this, okay? Like, agents say now, oh, it can't be manipulated as much, but it's pretty funny. I was talking to one of my friends who's a past client. he listed his house. Before he listed his house, the Zestimate had it at like 970. Strangely, after he listed it, the Zestimate was higher. And it was because the agent had put in all these extra things that the house had, right? Zestimates are not always accurate though, because if the agent puts in stuff the property doesn't actually have, it's just an artificial inflation of value. So the best way you can have an idea of what a house is worth is not a Zestimate, okay? And look, Zestimates sometimes are low. You know, I always laugh because the best deal often is the house with a low Zestimate. And it's because people are like, oh, well, the Zestimate's low, I'm not gonna look at it, right? And that's when you can find a great house, because Zestimates are not accurate. They're really not. So, you want to have an agent pull comparable sales just to make sure you're within the ball game. And where I usually see it being the most problematic is if a house has been renovated. Yeah, so I'm talking about those houses where an investor bought it for less money and then they put in a bunch of work and now they're trying to get a higher price. A lot of times there's not sales to support that value. And here's the thing, if you want to pay for an appraisal and do a little gambling, cool, right? I just want you to be aware that's what's happening, right? And if I was buying a house right now, what is one thing I would require before I wrote any offer? Comparable sales. Comparable sales. I would require that because here's the thing. Comparable sales are powerful. You know, you can end up overpaying for a house because, you know, let's say you write an offer and you do an appraisal gap and all this other stuff, you can end up overpaying for a house. Whereas if you had seen the comparable sales day one, you never would have written it for that much, right? And that's the thing. And like, if you're like, well, my agent said they don't do that. Why? Why? It's so easy for them now. Literally, the computer has made it so easy for them. So why don't they do that? And if they go, well, they just don't. Would I work with them? No, because I, the consumer, am saying, hey, I want to review this data before I make an offer because I want to make sure I'm making an educated offer, right? This goes the other way too. It could go where you're like, oh, this house is listed at 300. I'm going to offer 280. But if the comparable sales are at 310, you shouldn't be going down. You should be doing probably list, right? Unless it's been on the market for a long time. There's a lot that goes into this. And that's why you want to make sure that you're working with an agent that is happy to provide the data, but also happy to go through it with you so that when you're writing an offer, you can make the most educated decision. And look, if you're like, oh yeah, they're crazy, it's never going to appraise for this, but we think we can negotiate them down, cool. As long as you realize this money's at risk. And if you're okay with that, great. And look, I have some clients where, you know, the agent and them both are like, yeah, it's never going to appraise, but they're not going to accept our offer otherwise, and we're just going to have to work on them. And they do, and they're successful. But then I've also had clients where they're like, oh my gosh, it didn't come in and we don't know what to do, and they won't drop their price and they're heartbroken and they gave notice and they're moving. So the key is this, if you're looking at buying a house, make sure you're working with a real estate agent that's willing to give you comparable sales. If they won't do it, why are you working with them? It's like working with a lender that won't show you the numbers. How are you supposed to make an educated decision? As always, thank you for watching. Questions, comments, please reach out.